But my legs heavy, I don't get it. How come I haven't hit it already? Still working, I'm still learning, I'm still searching, finally earning something, finally turning something called a profit. If I hear you talking shit, don't get caught in it. I'll be popping off and hit your ass, dropping all your shit. Yeah, I promise this, I got promises. You ain't stopping this, cross my shit, you'll be knocked unconscious, bitch. That's the consequence, I got this, I will not quit. Man, I'm on it, honest. I'm gonna launch quick, then I'm gone. It's just a matter of time before I'm over the climb and moving under my prime. Just quit my 9 to 5, I'm rocking, and they watching, cause it's shocking. Dropping all these top 10 songs, so stopping. It's time to live my life, it's time to live, not die. Wish I could slow down time and just enjoy the climb.
What is up, people? So let's get into it. Nice, wonderful day. Wanted just bullshit. Have an open panel. I'm gonna put the link out in the chat right away. Ultimately, I wanted to talk about this whole gravity situation. Unfortunately for flat Earth, um, saying gravity is mythical does not make it mythical. Um, Denying evidence for gravity doesn't make it mythical. Not only that, it really plays to questions on truth or flat Earth. One is um again, I completely understand that the concept of how things work, isn't understood by all. I didn't understand it, um, so I wouldn't expect right out the gate anyone to expect it without saying. So I don't hold it against. At the same time, um, have to at least you got to at least own up to the fact that you don't understand. It's just a little bit further in your grasp on understanding. It's fine. Was for me, it's not. I'm not ashamed of it. I got to learn a lot more. Um, but it comes down to it. It's fundamentally: are you looking for the answers, or does it play against the narrative? That big word narrative I've been using. Does it play against the narrative in which you want? Because, like I said, guys, pretty cut and dry to me how it goes. Basically, because again, not a then hear it and now I'm indoctrinated again, and I just repeating everything. I literally taken notes the same way I used to. I've weighed the options of how things work. I've done. I need to do more experiments, but I at least have the concept how things work and how gravity works on the world. Um, Again, you can ask, see gravity, but I'm just gonna explain to you once again that you don't see gravity; you see the effects of gravity. Same way, and if again, because then you'll be like, oh well, you can't show me. Well, same way you can't see wind is the same way you see effects of wind. All works the same thing. So I hoping no one's gonna tell me they don't believe in the wind. But anything possible. Um, Let me fix one setting real quick. I know I needed.
Well, Sean, it's
How you
all
doing,
just
Sasha?
giant vacuums. The wind's just giant vacuums that they have in the oceans. You didn't
I've never
know?
never heard that one. What's up, Seek and Find? Yeah, never heard that one. I've heard a lot of things, but never that one. Um, the latest one I heard, see, and this is what I don't get it. So I was on Jose's panel earlier. You guys haven't listened to that, you're living under a rock. Um, and Riley came on, and he kept explaining how gravity wasn't proven, and that his proof was
It's been proven, all right.
his proof was Newtonian, Newtonian, the Newtonian theory for gravity, which is basically in the past was almost put aside to Einstein's with the time, space, and the warp and all that. Um, but I mean, everything his whole base evidence was that science didn't use Newtonian gravity, and come to find out, they do. Matter of fact, they do quite a bit. Um, the thing is that they don't explain the same thing. Matter of fact, I think they work. When I read through it, it seemed to me like they needed each other to work. One kind of explains it on a lower scale, whereas in Einstein's explains it on a much deeper
Well,
theory.
yeah, that's what Einstein came along and did. Is Newton had these basic laws, but they didn't explain everything. So Einstein came along with this outer branch of mathematics that explained everything that Newton's couldn't. But if you simplified Einstein's equations, you would get Newton's equations.
Yeah,
Except Einstein's explains a little more, and so we need another. So right now we're looking for another branch of mathematics that wraps around Einstein's,
well, that would be
but would still simplify down to Newton's.
well that from what I was reading, Newtonian's theory of gravity is is basically working under the quantum realm of it. Use quantum, right? Like everything, that's how everything does match up. Everything works together. But yeah, okay. But here nor there. But even more, and I expected out of Riley. Riley does that kind of stuff. But what I wasn't getting was the rhetoric back and forth they were having with a certain other couple people on the panel. That when you explain something, it's put aside and acted like it doesn't work. Um, Now, again, I ask, where did you come to the conclusion that gravity is real, and why? Again, see, I saw you out there, see, you know, come on and ask questions, but I mean, I have questions too. I mean, it's fundamentally ridiculous how the flat Earth narrative is ask, 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 deny, 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 but there's no showing that. Now, again, I keep hearing though we don't have time. We haven't had that much time to figure these things out. Okay, well, why are you arguing that our model is wrong if you haven't been able to have time to figure these out? Where, at what juncture did you suddenly all of a sudden understand gravity and be able to debunk it? You guys understand that you're debunking
I'll bet most of them.
scientists' theories and worked out equations to figure these things out.
Well, most of them probably don't even understand that gravity isn't as simple as mass attracting mass. Because if I talk, the average person will tell you that gravity is mass attracting mass, but it's a lot more complicated to that, and you can't quote unquote debunk a thing until you actually understand everything that goes into it.
Well, and even worse than that, it's easy to explain, even under for my terms. I mean,
But yeah,
like you said, to debunk it, you do need to know everything about it.
I
But
mean,
to explain it, you don't need to know
Mhm.
everything about it. It's very simple
Exactly.
to understand.
Mass attracting mass is the simple version. The more complicated version is more on the lines of energy attracting energy, but mass contains energy, and so it's pretty much just simplified down to mass attracts mass, so that we can understand it. Because we're not going to be able to understand all the energy, whatever nonsense.
Well, no, that's not true, because that's the route I'm going right now. So I've got from everything that's been going on, from what I've been taking notes and researching over the past few months, I have a good basic understanding. I can explain gravity to somebody. Can I get detailed with it? Absolutely not. But I noticed something. So we were talking about the laws of thermodynamics, right? And I started noticing something because today I was taking notes, and I started noticing, the terms mass, matter, energy being correlated with gravity. So I know we're now talking the internal parts of how to explain it. And one of the things that I noticed right offhand were terms for energy in terms for mass. Well, one of these terms is things like heat, light, motion. What was I got? I said this in my notes for matter. I mean, for energy was like heat, and there's all these terms that I'm have to look into, figure out what those even mean, and then go from there. Now, I hear a lot of people right off the bat going, I know how it works. Don't have to keep explaining it. I'd like to see if that's true. I really do.
I find that hard to believe because even I don't understand how it works.
No. So when I
Not by
say
a long shot.
so when I say that, and I'm kind of jumping back to thermodynamics because this all works together. Like it all tangles in. It all explains something. It explains the same thing, no matter which way you come about it.
That's another big point is thermodynamics and gravity. They all work. You can put them together in a system and it will still work. Most of the flat Earth counter explanations, they only work by themselves. You can't put the flat Earth's example for what flat Earth thinks gravity is and what flat Earth thinks thermodynamics is. Those two don't work together.
No, they don't. And that was one of the big red flags when I was a flat earther. Because after 2 years, I was happy to the point where I was starting to break things down. And once I started breaking things down, and I especially got to this second law of thermodynamics, I realized really quick that not only does everything I was told about the second law of thermodynamics was untrue, but it was very misrepresented. Um, when someone's reading to you what the second law of thermodynamics is as a flat earther, it's read insanely different. And I got another dose of this this morning on Jose's stream when Riley was there. Riley started reading off a dissertation of some article that one of the other panelists was trying to express to their point, and Riley literally word for word tore it up, made his own fucking narrative for it. He decided what that paper meant, and right then and there, you have to see the fact that his bias for this topic clouds over his reasoning to think of how another side is, which is why Riley I mean, realistically, Riley's like the top experiment type guy for flat Earth right now. He's making up his own science the same way Quantum Eraser did. What's up, Alan? How you doing? There? Alan, you there? All right. Yeah, so basically doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on the point where they start rattling off definitions or things that people have stated and misrepresented. Like when Neil deGrasse Tyson said the Earth was pear-shaped, they didn't take that for what he meant. They took it and twisted it into what they mean. The Earth isn't actually pear-shaped. It's just how he explained the blatantness. But like it's the same thing where they're twisting the facts and making them mean
I
different
talked
things.
about that earlier.
Are we on a different topic now?
No. It's open. It doesn't matter. when it comes to Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, you guys understand that those are spokesmen. Same way you guys understand that Donald Trump is the face of the government and not really running anything. It's kind of the same way it works when it comes to Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye. Those are just faces. They're not, they're not, solving Earth's problems and in a lab busting their ass. They're just faces, guys, and they probably read off of a fucking memorandum of what whoever they're working for wants them to talk about. But yeah, they're not the
Well,
leading.
no, I don't. I don't fully agree with that.
Hang on. They are not the leading scientists on anything. They're not coming to us with this breaking news and making sure everything is so pinpoint, precise, correct that there's no holes to be punched in it. You guys realize that, right? They're on TV.
Well, one thing I disagree. So you're saying they're just saying what people tell them. That's not exactly true. They understand the concepts and they're simplifying them for us.
Exactly.
They're trying to help us understand what the other scientists are doing.
Well, here's the problem. They may have PhDs in something, but let's be honest, Sasha. They're not in a laboratory 10 hours a day ever. You understand that, right? Like they're not writing any more dissertations on anything. They're done doing that stuff. That's not how they roll anymore. They're literally just TV faces now. They know enough to explain what's being explained. Trust me, they're not doing these tests. They're reading it out of. They may read a journal or two, but I can guarantee you they're not leading scientists on anything.
Well, no. Yeah, I'll agree. They're not the ones performing it, but they actually understand it. They understand the mathematics behind it. They understand the physics behind it. So they're not just reading off. They actually understand what's happening there, and then they're explaining to us. If they had to repeat a test and show how the test is valid and everything, they could do that.
Okay. See,
they'd be very good at that.
I'll tell you, I doubt it. And here's why. Again, they're not spending 10 hours a day in a lab. They are literally learning as they read. They're not doing these tests. I don't think either one of them has probably done an experiment or a test or done anything like that in a long. Not to mention, both of them been on twice as long as you are old. Trust me, they're faces. And here's another thing. When a scientist explains the work they've done, they are very meticulous about how they explain it. Those two are very TV about how they explain it. Kind of like the same way if you read a really good book.
In a way that's good though.
No, it's not good. It's not, because what happens what happens is people who do not understand what they're being told by them take that for face value and say that's what science is saying. And science would never tell you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know in an explanation for gravity. They're not going to tell you I don't know.
What I think they're trying to do is they're trying to explain it in simple terms that people can understand, but then sometimes people try and twist those facts.
What happens when you do that, and especially when you're not very meticulous about the information you're putting out, people who don't understand it take it and run with it. And it's not their fault. It's the information they were given. So if someone comes here and says, I heard Bill Nye say something, is it his fault he said Bill Nye said something? No, because Bill Nye presents himself as a scientist, presents himself as a leading authority in science, but he's not. He's an actor. His job is to simplify, like you said, simplify the information. But the problem is he can't simplify information.
Yeah,
not have it precise and expect it not to be.
I'll agree with you. But the one problem I have is you're trying to make it sound like they're actors and they don't know what they're talking about. But that's where I disagree, because these are very smart. Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're very smart people, and they understand how the mathematics and physics
Hang on,
works.
Sasha.
You're trying to
Hang on.
downplay it as
Hang on.
they're just actors.
No, they are. I wanted to say what's up to Seek and Find. What's up, my friend?
What's up, everybody?
And what's up, Dr. Bob? How you doing, sir?
Not too bad. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty damn good. Now, this is a fun one because, like I was saying to everyone, I have a very good basic understanding of gravity. So I know I can explain gravity to you enough that it's real, period. Now, like I said, I started getting into all the terms and the equations and all that fun stuff. And again, the one thing that I didn't find on Flat Earth were these situations where everything works. So go to the laws of thermodynamics. You're just talking about the equations of gravity. Let's talk about the distances of everything and their gravity, the gravity they have, and our gravity wells. All those things, everything I just named, is things I've been researching. Everything I've been researching, everything works. Nothing has fouled with the other one. Nothing has messed up. Nothing has tangled itself. Now, in the chat, you guys are saying things like, we don't do so. Okay, see, here's the problem. NASA says, you saying people don't do science anymore. People just take our word for it. It's simple. No. See, that's the thing. I've already explained in this 45-second rant how I have broken down what science tells us to figure things out. And again, things that I've figured out so far still work together. Now, for Flat Earth, and you say that happens.
No.
I personally measured the circumference of the Earth last week. So, I mean, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of doing it.
How do you do that?
By the method of Eratosthenes on the summer equinox or the spring equinox.
Did you do that with Kosho?
No.
Okay.
A lot of us did it. I did it with a builder square and a paint stick.
So I know a lot of people just do it because they know that it's the equinox. But I know Kosho was trying to get something together with a bunch of people. I was going to help him and do the same test, but I had rainy skies that day. So.
Well, we had people in Michigan and Tennessee, and I think I've got one in northern Florida. I've got to get that one piece of data together, though. I'm just haven't had a chance to. There was one other observation. I tried to get one in Fairbanks, Alaska, but the weather was bad.
Damn, that'd have been tight. I want to address the chat real quick. NASA says, so he's in the chat saying, he says gravity a theory. Gravity is a scientific theory. Again, hopefully you've heard this. A theory and a scientific theory are not the same thing.
Well, there's a theory of gravity and there's a universal law of gravity. They're two different things.
Well, aren't there I think there's 14 or 15 theories of gravity?
There's one. I don't know. There's one main one, but there's a universal law of gravity, and then there's a theory of gravity.
But there's also the alternatives. Are those still hypotheses? I don't know, a guy named his name. 2014, he came out with his version of what he thought it was. I think he was still running tests. I don't know if it failed or not, but I know there are other people out there trying to give out their theories for gravity.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I know as a theory, I wanted to make sure there are also theories as well, but there is a difference between a scientific theory.
Well, scientific theory is one that has been basically vetted. It's been reproduced. It's a summation of the consensus of scientific thought. Now, the difference between a theory and a law is a law tells you the what. The theory tells you the why. Now, what, we know that there's a 9.8 meter per second squared acceleration towards the center of the Earth, or downward. And that has to do with the law of gravity, which is the big G times mass 1, mass 2 over radius square. That will tell you, it's a law because it will tell you the attractive force between the two. Now, the theory of gravity has to do with why that happens. The law, we just measure more precisely. The theory of gravity is what tells us, is what we think is happening.
Okay. Yeah. So improve the atmosphere. Okay. See, like, all right. So NASA says, I know you're gonna run off with 1,000 more things. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick to what you're saying. You want us to explain gravity? We got you. You want us to explain how the atmosphere is next to this vacuum called space? We got you. We'll do this. But here's the thing. You got to understand something. A minute ago, you said that no one does science. We're doing science. Scientists do science. Now, here's my big question. If you don't trust science, how did you figure out what is a lie about the globe or about science itself? That's a good question. I hope you answer that one. Don't pass that one up.
Well, here's another good question for you. If you want to question the globe or if you want to question gravity, I've got some questions for you about the globe and about gravity to see how well you understand it.
Yeah, and that's what I was
Because
saying.
if you don't understand it, you have no business questioning it because you don't even know what you're questioning.
Yeah, because me and Sasha were
unless
talking
you
about
can,
that. Yeah, me and Sasha were talking about that a minute ago. It went. How do you, if you're going to debunk gravity, you have to know everything about gravity, and you can't say you don't because you really do, because you have to be able to prove that everything about gravity is what you call a lie. And if you want to explain it like I want to, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know the details. I know enough that I can give you the facts about it. Now, again, there's a big difference between debunking gravity and maybe knowing more than me, or just not accepting the reality of what it is. But it has to be something, guys. So some of you say,
well, there's nothing wrong with questioning it as long as you know what questions you're asking.
Well,
I don't have a problem answering questions.
Well,
and if I don't know the answer,
just like I was saying, those
that's a
other
great
guys
question.
with theories or these ideas for for their own gravity and all that kind of stuff. These are guys trying to crush the Einstein's theories, Newton's idea of their whole goal is to be those guys. And for you guys to believe that all scientists don't care and don't do science is ridiculous. What's up, Brenda? How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. Doing really good.
Hello, Brenda.
Good evening.
So we're playing the gravity game.
I don't know some of these names.
Me?
Alan.
Some of them.
Hello.
How you doing? You finally got your mic working. How you doing?
I'm fine.
Cool. Sitting in.
There is a hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There's a device called gravimeter. Do you know that gravity meter? Oh, gravimeter.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I know what it is.
Is Bob the Science Guy channel?
That would be me.
Yeah, yes,
That's a good channel. Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I just passed 7,000 subs. I'm really pleased with it.
Yeah, I watch it.
Well, thank you very much.
And everything you've said so far, I totally agree with. Yeah.
Well, I've made some mistakes, but I admit to my mistakes when I make them.
Yeah, I never make mistakes. That's a secret.
I thought I was mistaken once, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and
But
Brenda have
Nathan
gone
said
at
you
it
all.
many times.
But Nathan said you always make mistakes.
But
Nathan said that? Cool.
Nathan, it's always in the chat with Nathan Oakley. Brenda's always been bullied by Nathan and the others.
Oh,
well, the only reason that anybody gets bullied by Nathan is they allow him to bully him. I just laugh at him. It pisses him off to no end.
I have sort of a strategy, which is partly that I want him to make himself look bad. So if he bullies me, I think that makes... Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it makes him look bad, and that's part of my strategy.
Well, my strategy is to let him just go off.
It's rope-a-dope.
Yeah, my strategy is to let him just go on out, and I'll let him run for a while, and then I'll rein him in, and then I'll let him run a little bit more, and he ends up really looking stupid. I do the same thing with Riley and some of the others.
Yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes on Nathan Oakley's show. I get flustered. You get inundated. You get constantly interrupted, and then I get pissed off, and I make many mistakes.
Well, that's because you're a shrooming things. Don't shroom things, man. Don't shroom them.
Oh, God.
All right, so like I said, I kind of want to get into I don't want to get too deep into this, guys. So I know I got a few people here that are perfectly able to really dive deep into it. So let's try to keep it caveman-ish for me. You can find. I know you're gonna want to say that you have that patented question.
I'm gonna mute myself. I got stuff on the stove.
Okay, no problem.
I'm chilling, bro. I'm
Okay.
just listening. I don't want to argue, man.
No arguing. Okay, no worries at all. You want to jump in, No worries at all. One of the things I wanted to touch on is one thing that I hear a lot, and we can go and start from here. A lot of questions like Seeks are, and you're gonna love this one. Show me gravity. Now, no, cannot show you gravity. Can show you the effects of gravity.
What's the effects? That's the question that I asked, pretty much.
You're 100% right. And luckily enough for me, I have people here that can answer it much better than me. But at the same time, my answer is fundamentally correct. Go look at the ocean. Is it flying up? No? Okay. Well, that's why it's not falling off the ball. It's gravity. Guys.
Well, that doesn't really answer the question, though, because
you're right. Okay. Is there anyone here on the panel that can give him a good effects of gravity?
you were just saying earlier. Well, let me clarify. Because you were just saying earlier that you can see the effects. Now you're saying you don't know what the effects are.
No,
so.
I did not say I didn't. I didn't say I didn't know what the effects are. I said I have people here that can explain it much better than I can.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Easily.
But
Okay. Well, there's a downward acceleration. Do you agree with that?
You're saying there's a
measurable.
force. Okay. So.
Yeah, there is a downward acceleration, which is measurable, and
a force.
it's not really possible to question it.
I mean, you don't have to change the terms of what a force is. It's a force. You're saying there's a downward.
Well, no, it's a force when it's a force when it affects mass.
Remember,
then it becomes a force. There is a downward acceleration. If that downward acceleration acts on mass, then it's a force. You are correct.
Okay, so I guess I would ask: is water mass?
Of course.
So what's the effects that the force has on water?
It makes it go downward.
Okay, so Bob, would you agree that any other force that is acting upon water, the water shows the effect?
Yes.
So what's the effect that this force of gravity is having on the water? What is the effect that the water's doing? What's the behavior that the water takes because of the force of gravity?
It seeks a level that is closest to the center of mass in the direction of gravity.
Does that make it makes it curve?
It makes it level.
Curve.
Do you know the difference between curve and level?
There is a difference, right?
Well, what's the difference between level and
there
flat,
is a difference,
for example?
Right? There's a difference between level and curve, right?
Yeah.
Wait. Hang on. Why would you use level and curve together? Like,
because I meant to say level
Sean, why'd
and
you
flat.
have to put in right there, Sean? Why'd you have to put in?
Because I had a
I meant to use level and flat, but it came out level and curved.
Okay.
But there is a difference between level and curved.
And I jumped
because
in
you can have a wave, for example. A rise of water that is a wave is curved, but it's not level. Now, a better way of saying that, and what I should have said before I misspoke, was to say level and flat.
What about level and flat?
There's a difference between the two.
There's a difference between level and curve. Level and
And there's-
flat can have a difference, but at the same time, level and flat,
There's
you can have a level flat surface. You can't have a level curved surface.
You can have level
There's-
on a curved surface.
Yeah, you can.
Well,
And
we're talking about the bit again.
level and flat
again,
are not the same thing.
again. We're talking about the effect
Okay.
of the force.
Okay.
The
Okay,
effect
so
of the
what is
force
it?
is to make the surface of the water level.
Okay, I digress, man.
What I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like he literally explained exactly what the effect is. Like you
When
want.
when it's making the water level, is it making it flat on the top or is it making it curved
No.
on the top?
So what you're doing now is playing word games because this is how simple it is. I will explain.
I've
it.
already told you, I've already answered that question, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to answer it
hang on,
again. There is
hang
a
on.
There's
difference
no
between level
reason
and
for you
flat.
to get
No,
mad,
it's
man.
okay,
There's
hang
no
on,
reason
hang
for
I'm
you to
not
get mad.
mad. I'm just telling you, I'm not playing your game that I'm
okay.
answering the same
Okay.
thing 12
Hang on,
times.
hang on.
It's level,
Hang on,
period,
Bob.
full stop.
Stop. Hang on. Is everyone happen?
I just got asked the same thing again, and I'm just not in the mood to play the same
Okay, but here's the
word
thing.
games.
Here's the thing. If you don't want to explain it again, I have no problem explaining it again because, again, when that happens, it quickly stops the conversation because you're upset now.
I'm going to turn it over to you then.
Okay, thank you. So you can find no worries. What I was trying to say is you're saying level. The water is level. Yes, that is the effect because gravity is affecting the water everywhere, every single spot you can think of, right? So when you say level, yes, you can have level on a sphere. You understand that? We showed it to you. I think a couple streams ago. We showed you level on a ball. Now, when you say flat and you say you can't have flat on a curve, those are wordplay. It doesn't work that way. You have to remember we've already explained that. So when you sit there and want to interject or say something different or wordplay it around, it's not helping your case. It's only showing that you're doing that now. So the effect's been clearly explained. There are other ways to explain it. And if that's what it takes, cool. But you have to understand where you're just telling me it's a joke to you. Do you understand what level, flat, curve? Do you understand all these things? Because as my job, I didn't have to remember you can have level on a ball. I know I can put level. I can have level on a ball because part of my job. It's like having grade on a slope. I know I can have grade on a slope. I know what my 2-to-1s and my 1-to-1s and my 1-to-3s are for a slope. Same thing. All works together still. So trouble in the chat. You made it very clear you don't trust science. So you said no, Sean, not at all. Signs and lies and corporate. Okay, so here's the problem. Trouble. How do you know science lies? What did you use to come to the conclusion that science lies? There has to be a method in which you use to come to the conclusion everything you're told by science is a lie. Now, you can't if you're saying that, I don't know how you could debunk anything about science because you would have to use science to debunk science unless there's a mythical science we don't know about. But again, you discredit yourself as an expert every time you deny the moon landing hoax fraud. Okay, that's you're jumping, clearly jumping from my question. So again, what science did you use to come to the conclusion the globe is a lie? That's all I want to know. You said gravity, the only force you can't see effects of. Wait, gravity is a force you can't see, but you can see the effects of them. We explained that, Seek. No need to act like we didn't. And again, it's not the only one. There are lots of forces that you can't see, but you see the effects of.
You want to see the unquestionable effect of gravity that cannot be explained with buoyancy and density. Would you like to see it right now? Because you can do it.
Sure.
All right. Do you have an iPhone?
I do have an iPhone.
Great. Hold it up.
Holding.
Now, you see You see the little image or the picture or something or other on the top of the iPhone?
Yep.
Turn it on its side, please.
All right.
Did the image switch?
It did switch.
Gravity. End of fucking discussion.
So it's kind of like a, what's this called? That system in there.
That's an accelerometer.
Yes. So it knows.
And that's the end of the discussion on gravity. You just demonstrated it. And everybody that listened to it just demonstrated gravity.
So
That cannot be explained. So buoyancy and density is completely off the table and won't be discussed any further.
Well, how does a phone work that it does that? Because I don't know.
There's an accelerometer in the phone that determines which way is down.
Okay, so that's
all
what
right.
You have to calibrate it, right? That's what.
Well, you can calibrate it, yes, when you're doing the compass and such.
Yeah.
But you can actually measure the force of gravity with a phone because that's what it does. And when you turn it to its side, it realizes that it's no longer down by the little button. It's down by the side of the phone, so it automatically switches the screen for you. There's no density or buoyancy that can possibly cause that. There's no outside force that can possibly cause that, with the exception of the direction and the vector of which is a vector has a direction to it, and that is the vector of the force of gravity tells that phone which way the screen needs to go. So that's it. There's no more discussion of density and buoyancy.
Yeah, I don't really get those arguments because, for one, it doesn't. I haven't even heard an explanation for how it could work. The last thing I've heard was I'm sure you remember Chris. He was saying it was atmosphere that played a part in everything, and I don't think he understood how atmosphere worked.
Well, you see, that's the problem with it. They can't. Density, buoyancy, atmospheric pressure cannot explain what you just did with your phone. There's only one thing that can do it, and that's the vector of the force of gravity. And that's the way the phone is designed. That is the device in the phone, the accelerometer in the phone, that determines which way is down. It does it based on gravity.
In the chat, someone said couldn't a small mercury switch cause that also? What's a small mercury switch?
Okay, great. What would cause the mercury to move? And is there a mercury switch in an iPhone?
What's a mercury switch?
A mercury switch basically is a tube, generally circular or semicircular, that has mercury in it. And when it's oriented in a certain way, it'll connect a circuit.
Okay, I see. I'm looking at it now.
But there is no mercury switch, and I knew that right off the top of my head, so it's not like I'm making it up. And you just looked it up. Was I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share it right now on the screen.
Okay. There you go. So that's a valid point, except for two things. What makes the mercury move, and is there a mercury switch in an iPhone? Unless you can answer those two questions, that's just a distraction.
Well, I can tell you for sure, because I love tinkering with electronics. No, cell phones do not have these mercury switches in them. I have never seen one, and
No.
I take a lot of shit apart.
No, they don't. It's an accelerometer.
Okay.
Now, don't ask me how the accelerometer specifically works because I don't have the electrical engineering for that.
No worries.
But I do know that there is such a thing as an accelerometer, and it will measure very precisely the acceleration of gravity and the direction of that acceleration.
Accelerometer now? I don't know.
I'd like to know how it works too, and I'm driving and I can't look it up. But I don't know how it works.
I'm gotta find it. Hang on over. That one chat real quick because I know you're talking about it. Again, I mean, trouble. You're frustrated. I don't know if you're frustrated with someone in the chat or what we're saying. I'm not sure. But regardless, guys. So here's the thing. We're at the very least understand we're giving explanations for what we've come across, right? Now, my question is again, what is your methods for having these experiences, your observations, your belief for these? That's what I don't understand. There has to be something that backs that idea.
You have to give me an alternative explanation, and that explains it at least as well, if not better. If not, I mean, it's just drivel.
I'm looking at it right now. Nice little page for accelerometer. So it says an accelerometer is a device that measures proper acceleration, proper acceleration being acceleration, a rate, a change, a velocity. Is basically you turning your phone on its side, changing the velocity of it. That is changing the direction that it faces.
Yeah, the direction, not the velocity.
Well, it says rate of change of velocity. Okay, so okay, I see. It measures. Okay.
Now, if you drop the phone, it will go to zero gravity. All right. If you drop it and it's in free fall, it'll go to zero. And if you lift the phone up, it'll go greater than 1 because you're accelerating it on top of the acceleration of gravity.
Wait a minute. So I can get this I probably can get one of these on my phone, an app for this, right?
Yes.
So I mean,
you already have one. You already have the device. You just need to be able to read it.
Okay, so
and then you drop it. You drop your phone onto a pillow, and you will see that goes to zero gravity while it's in free fall.
And I now have a challenge to any flat earther at all. Download this, get the app. I'm going to do it too. Now, the equation for the 9.81 meters second squared, understand that is in a vacuum. But here's the thing. The number you'll get on your phone, if you do the equation for your phone, you drop anything, really, and you do the equation correctly, it's going to pull out. Explain why.
All right, I'm going to have to correct you on that real quick.
Thank you.
It has absolutely nothing to do with being in a vacuum.
Well, okay, so but the
acceleration of gravity has nothing to do with being in a vacuum.
Okay.
The effect that has on an object that you drop is affected by other forces. Specifically, there is a wind resistance that is opposing that acceleration, so it will drop less slowly. It will still drop.
And
that's why if you, in an atmosphere, if you drop a feather and a hammer, the feather has more wind resistance per mass than the hammer does. So the hammer will fall closer to 9.81 meters per second. The feather will fall a little slower. If you repeat the test in a vacuum, they will fall at the same rate because there is no factor of air resistance opposing the downward acceleration.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
End of sermon.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to explain. Thank you very much for correcting me because I didn't want that to be misconstrued. But yeah, I mean, it's because of the atmosphere, ultimately. It's not going to be exact. Understand that you're not a vacuum, so you're not going to be without atmosphere to play on it. But I mean, again, I hope I'm saying this correctly. The equation will be right. You will be able to. Everything will basically almost everything laying on its resistance, and the height you drop something at is the numbers are going to work. Now, science,
and you can calculate what that resistance will be and be able to predict how much slower a feather would fall than a hammer would, because you can calculate the effect of wind resistance.
Yes, and that's, I mean, right there, guys. Just that one simple thing you guys can do is one way someone would go about seeing if science is full of shit. I mean, you can do this with everything. Oh, not every single thing. Well, I guess if you have the means, you can. But I mean, what we just explained is almost free. I mean, a little bit of your time, but it's free.
Well, let me put something to the guy that says he doesn't trust science for anything. Okay? Now, that's fine. You don't have to trust science. You can believe what you wish. If you want me or anybody else to take you seriously, you better be able to explain yourself to the degree that I was just able to explain myself right off the top of my head.
Well, that's under the,
Because if you can't
Yeah.
explain that process, I really am not interested in hearing what you have to say.
well, I am, but I do agree with what you're saying. You're the denial of something without the understanding of something. It doesn't work well for flat Earth. It's very
No, it's
and
pointless.
and it's very obvious. Because the understanding of, like I said, you can have a conversation with me and we can go back and forth because we both have a basic understanding of it. But to actually debunk something, per se, the flat Earth or the globe, you have to debunk the globe, not these little bits and pieces of unanswered science that science has told you is unanswered. It's not like you guys.
Well, the
figured
other
it
thing
out.
that you can't do is you can't just sit down and say, I don't believe it,
Yeah,
and think that's an argument.
That's
It's
a big
not.
problem. That's a huge problem because that's what I was saying before. Well, guys, I don't know if your pride has you saying I can't tell him I don't know, but I don't know is much better than it's flat without explanation. Again, that's why my whole thing is now, you guys. There's no flat earthers. There's only globe deniers. Until you guys come up with
There's reality deniers.
until you have evidence for a flat Earth, we can't. I mean, there's no flat Earth to put on the table. I can't come out and say, "Hey guys, it's a triangle." Okay, why do you think it's a triangle? Because the galaxies, gravity don't work like the gravity on down here at the edge of the galaxies. That's not proof for a triangle Earth.
Well, the thing that I do to absolutely destroy the flat Earth is I just make a premise to my argument. Okay? The Earth is not a globe. Prove to me it's flat. Because every single thing that they have is an effort to try and prove the Earth is not a globe. Well, fine. The Earth isn't a globe. Prove to me it's flat.
Yeah, I mean, and that point would, if all worked out great for you guys, you understand that if science turned around tomorrow and said, you know what, we hear you saying we're lying, and you're saying it's flat. What do you have to verify that? You know what happens, right? You'll have nothing. You have to have something to be telling me it is flat. What's up, Harry?
But
how you doing?
But I can see further than I should on a globe. Okay, so what? I just told you it's not a globe. Tell me how it's flat.
I again, guys, I had a lot of answers as a flat earther. I still have answers, or still have questions. I mean, I apologize. Questions. And the worst part to me is that I didn't get answers as a flat earther. And when I asked the same questions that I was asking then, I'm now looked at like I'm stupid for it. Why are nobody on flat Earth? Why don't you treat them the same way? Because you guys should be asking these same questions. There's not one person that I know. There's not one person in this chat that is learned it all and doesn't have anything else to learn. That's what boggles my mind. I'm like, how do you guys debunk everything, but you don't trust science? And how are you debunking these things? Should be asking questions still. And again, if you're able to do these things, like for instance, we literally in 30 seconds came up with an experiment that you can do to show if the equation is even full of shit. I'm not even going to say to prove to anything. Find out if that equation is bullshit or not. I'm going to do it. Who else will do it? I bet one flat earther in here that is going to do this test. Anybody? Anybody willing to? I'll wait. Let me know. Let me know that I'm not going to be the only one who actually gives a shit on whether or not the equation is real or not, or works or not.
Hell, I'll be happy if one flat earther in this chat or they can phone a friend if they want. I'd be happy if one flat earther in this chat could tell me why my screen shifts on my iPhone when I rotate it.
It's the one thing I wanted to do as a flat earther was crush the bullshit that I thought was bullshit. I wanted the information from flat earth so I could go out and talk to guys who thought it was a globe and shove flat earth down their throats with proof. I couldn't do it. Now, guys, again, I know all of you in here were just as passionate about it as me. Why aren't you as passionate about not having the actual answers we should? It's a simple question, and the worst part is I'm every stream I ask the same question, and everyone acts like I'm on mute. It's not insulting because I get it. I get why you believe it's flat, but the problem is let's get to the understanding part now. Do you understand that it's not flat, or do you understand why you believe it's flat at least? And Stephen Warren can come on anytime because I literally listened to him discredit science in the way he tried to narrate an article that was being shared. I was reading it word for word with him right up until he decided to take it to a whole different level, whole different thing. It was like he took out half and put his opinion in the other half, and it irritated me that I was the only one that said, whoa. You can't do that when you're reading off something that would be disproving what you're saying.
You know, one of my favorite examples of that is Anthony Riley, where Einstein snapped the magic wand of Newton. In order to understand what that even means, you have to understand Einstein and Newton. And then it means something completely different than what he thinks it means. So, I mean, it always amazes me. I actually have a video that I put out where I dissected a debate between Anthony and Fight the Flat Earth on gravity. And we actually, it's one of those videos that's a little new for me, and that is that you have to be over 21 in order to watch it, or whatever the legal drinking age is in your state, province, country, and you have to be home for the evening. Because every time he says, snap the magic wand of Newton, or snap the wand of Newton, you have to take a drink. And by the end of this 57-minute video, if you aren't hammered, I don't know, you're a better man than I am.
What is it that you think that Riley thinks he's saying by that? Because I'm not sure I know.
Okay, what Riley thinks that he's saying by that is actually quite clever. Riley is not a stupid person. He's ignorant, but he's not stupid, and there's a difference, all right? Riley's entire argument is based upon two things. One, that mathematics is not reality. And two, the mathematical equation of Newton superseded and invalidated, the mathematical theory of general relativity of Einstein superseded Newton. So his entire argument is that it has to be Einstein or Newton, and Einstein is the current, therefore Newton is completely invalid. And since Einstein is based on mathematics, it is invalid as well, so we no longer have gravity. All right. Now, the quote that he is using is that Einstein snapped the wand of Newton. Under Newtonian gravity, the property of mass attracting mass was an intrinsic property of matter. And it exerted a force over a distance by unknown or magical means, this instantaneous force to other masses, attracting them. Einstein explained that that was due to the warping of space-time, so he got rid of the magic of this attraction. He snapped the wand because he explained what was causing it. Now, the other error that Anthony makes continuously is he seems to think that Einstein superseded and completely invalidated everything there was to do with Newton. Prior to 1905, Newtonian physics existed. It explained motion extraordinarily well. If Einstein had been disproven, we would still be using solely Newtonian mechanics. So, Einstein came out and did a better explanation as to the cause of gravity. However, it still manifests itself as a force that is very well described by Newton. It's like, his other argument is, well, what is down? Down is the direction towards the center of mass, according to Newton. But according to Einstein, down is the direction where time begins to decelerate. Now, regardless of how you define what down actually is, I think every single one of us can take our little finger and point down. We know, even no matter how you would formally define it, we know the direction. And he's trying to use that to just confuse the issue. But that's enough for me for right now.
My lord. Thank you. Someone is echoing.
I don't think.
I hope I'm not echoing. I'm a newcomer, Jeffrey Bozer.
Yeah, just make sure you mute your YouTube page, the watch page.
I should be muted already. I am on a headset.
Okay, no worries.
Am I still echoing?
Yeah, you're good. No more echoing. We're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what's up? Yeah, I've seen your chat. Thanks for joining.
I noticed that a lot of flat earthers are sort of intuitive thinkers. So when they hit logical explanations, they sort of stumble and they have problems. Like it becomes a definitional discussion. Like, what does flat mean? What does all? I mean, to them, that doesn't make much sense because they're intuiting what level and flat are from their own experience. You know what I mean?
Yes, yep, I get it.
Because, like, for example, if I think that previous person who was on here might have understood it better if you if you take a bowl of water and you spin it, water will spread up the sides of the bowl. It forms a flat surface, level surface, curved on the inside of the bowl, because level is nothing more than equilibrium to a force, perpendicular to a force, like with a fluid boundary, right? So,
well said.
Like if you take a ball and you spin it, you get a level surface. It can be perfectly smooth, perfectly conforming to the shape of a hemisphere, but it would be definitely curved. We have, from our own experience, standing on the surface of the Earth is fairly large. We don't have the eyes or the perspective to see it, but their intuition is leading them in a different direction. So when they run against the definition of level and flat, something jangles in their head.
It's an issue with not being able to connect the dots and make the connections between, if this is true and it leads to that, if we have this, then that must be true as well. It's inductive and deductive reasoning.
I agree.
It goes through, and then what they try and do is, rather than understand that, what they try and do is there's a thing, if you're making a formal logical argument, you can invalidate that to a proof. You can invalidate that by pointing out a logical fallacy. However, you can't necessarily use a logical fallacy when you're dealing with an inductive or a deductive reasoning. All right? It's only for formal logical proofs. So what they try and do is they start screaming logical fallacy this, logical fallacy that, for something that's not a logical argument.
Just like Nathan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just randomly putting out stuff, well, that's affirming the consequence. Well, no, it's not, because I'm not making a formal logical proof. I'm doing deductive and inductive reasoning to try and solve a puzzle or a mystery. That's the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a puzzle. You can put all the pieces together and get an answer. Inductive reasoning, you don't have all the pieces. You're gathering evidence in support of something to the point, and then you have to actually put that evidence together and come to some sort of a conclusion, which can be invalidated by a better conclusion or more evidence as it comes to light.
Yeah, I agree they're missing part of the tool set for solving the problem. But I think that I've noticed that they tend to very strongly lean on the induction side. I mean, they're taking their previous experience and basically trying to patch the holes in the wall and thinking it'll stand up. But the construction guy is like, dude, I have like numbers and a level and a plumb bob, and I've been doing this for my whole life, and I know the numbers and calculations, and I can figure out how much the roof has got to support in terms of weight and all the calculations involved, but they're just like patching the wall.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they're very happy to talk about they're very happy to misapply the second law of thermodynamics to the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Because science says that, an atmosphere is impossible according to the second law of thermodynamics. So, it can't be validated because, by God, it's science. Yeah. However, when science says gravity exists, that's just nonsense. That's just a theory. The other thing is, I love it when they go on the independent and the dependent variable, because they've got it in their head on the one definition that they found. It says the independent variable is the variable the scientist or the investigator varies to find the effect. Now, if you look at the very next definition, when you do a Google search for for parts of an experiment, it says the independent variable is the one that is varied. Okay? It doesn't say that the individual scientist has to vary it. So by saying that the scientist must vary it, they say that things like seismology is not a science, because the scientist does not vary the location of the earthquake. Now, here's my question for them. If my name is on the paper and I am the investigating scientist, do I personally have to vary the independent variable, or can I have Sean, my assistant, vary it for me?
Say it one more time.
All right.
I was in the chat. I apologize.
Not a problem. Well, they like to say that the only valid science is when the investigator or the scientist varies the independent variable personally. Even though the very next definition, when you do the Google search for that, says the independent variable is the one that is varied. It doesn't say that the individual scientist must personally vary it.
Yeah.
So that's a cherry pick designed to say that things like seismology and astronomy and cosmology and all that stuff is pseudoscience, because the investigator cannot personally vary the independent variable. Well, my question is this. If I am the guy whose name is on the paper, I am the scientist. Can I have Sean, my assistant, vary the independent variable and have it still be science, or do I have to personally do it myself because my name's on the paper?
I would think you have to.
Okay, but I can't have anybody else do it.
Yeah, because then
on my team.
Well,
I have to do it myself because my name's on the paper. I can't have my assistant do it.
It'd be like taking credit or acknowledging something that you have no knowledge of.
Well, no, I can say, Sean, I'd like you to move those weights closer to each other. Because that's part of our experiment.
Yeah.
Does that still mean it's science if I am not the one moving the weights, but you are?
Yeah, that's still science. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
Is the important thing whether the variable is changed, or is the important thing who changes the variable?
If the variable changes, not who does it.
Great. So if I cause an earthquake and I measure the seismic waves for it, we'll all agree that that's me varying the independent variable. But if nature causes an earthquake at another spot, and I know where that spot is, and I read the waves from it, and then I compare it to earthquakes that occur all over the world, is the location of the earthquake being changed?
No.
Yes, it is, because it's in different locations, right?
The location has changed, but you have not changed.
Okay, I haven't, but has an independent variable been changed?
Okay, yes.
Or is the important thing that I am the one changing it?
No, it's this.
I maintain the important thing is that the independent variable must be changed.
Yeah.
It's not important who changes it,
Yeah.
or whether or not it changes by natural sequence by different locations of earthquakes. It's still a varying location.
Yeah.
Isn't that whole like if a fucking tree falls in the forest and no one hears it shit? Like someone like you have to be involved, right?
But no, the thing about it is the reason that they are trying to make that distinction is not to improve science or find truth. They are trying to invalidate seismology, for example, as a quote unquote science, and therefore they can call it pseudoscience. The same as they sit down and say, well, mathematics is not real. So therefore, we can get rid of Einstein. But since Einstein superseded Newton, Newton's no longer valid, and we just invalidated Einstein, so we have nothing. Congratulations, there's no gravity, and they proved it.
But so in my head, the first thing that popped in my mind is, does that mean did they have to? Don't they have to go into? Doesn't their experiments and their observations have to be done under the same scrutiny then?
Well, can an observation be science?
Well, yeah.
Well, by itself.
Not according to them. Not according to them.
Well, by itself,
because
observation is the material that you start with.
But isn't there always a first step in science?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, an observation would be the first step.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was right.
But can you have an observation-based scientific experiment?
So only observation? I don't think so.
Yes.
Yes, only
Yes, you
observation.
can.
No, I don't-
Yes, you
Well,
can.
Well,
Yeah, you can. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Would you like an example of one?
absolutely. Please.
Astronomy.
All right. In 1919, there was a total eclipse of the sun. This was 14 years after Einstein came out with relativity, okay? It was predicted under Einstein's general theory of relativity that in the presence of a large mass, space-time would be warped and the path of light would be changed. It would come around it. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it would be offset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Einstein was correct and you took stars that had their locations very precisely mapped, and at the time of the eclipse, the sun was in the path of light from those stars to the earth. And when the sun blacked out and you measured the location of the stars, Einstein predicted that they would be slightly different because the light from those stars was coming around the mass of the sun. Right?
Yes.
So they set up an experiment by a guy named Eddington. And they sent observers to look at the solar eclipse. And they very precisely mapped these stars beforehand. And then they took photographs and precisely mapped those stars in the context of having the sun right there. And they found that the light from those stars was warped exactly as Einstein predicted. That served as an experiment to confirm the theory of relativity, or to lend support to the theory of relativity, because the math predicted something, and when we observed that something in reality, it precisely matched what was predicted, confirming the model.
And so and this is maybe a dumb question, but I'm a dumb person. Why does that supersede Newton?
It actually doesn't.
Well, I mean, what is the hoopla? Like,
The hoopla is that Newtonian mechanics worked very, very well prior to 1905.
Well, they
We
still
were able to make many, many predictions based on Newtonian mechanics and the universal law of gravity. There were some slight things that were off. Okay?
Yep.
The orbit of Mercury was off by 44 milliseconds per century based on what Newton predicted.
but
Einstein looked at gravity from a different way, and he looked more at the cause of the gravity rather than just saying it was an intrinsic property of mass. And he figured out that in reality, now this is the tough part that they can't get. Gravity itself is the effect of mass on space-time. The manifestation of that effect is a force. Gravity itself is not a force, but if you look at it and try and measure it, you can measure it as a force. Like, for example, I said earlier, there's two competing definitions of what down is. One is towards the center of mass, and that's Newton. And the other is in direction that time slows down, and that is Einstein. Yet all of us agree that if we point to our feet, that's fucking down. We understand that even though it's not described specifically as a direction or a vector, we can understand that down is towards our feet.
okay,
And that's, so even though gravity is not a force per se, according to Einstein, it can be described as a force under Newtonian physics, and we can use that.
and that is used by science. Science.
That's how we went to the moon. That's how your friend built his roof, to make sure that the struts handled the load. That's how you design houses.
Okay. Now,
It's Newtonian physics.
Because I honestly thought that it was like something Einstein had come up with, ruled out Newton's theory.
no.
Exactly. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that it is a one or the other. And that is because they do not understand how the two interact.
Yeah, I have a way of explaining it a little better. Newtonian physics is a little bit like a cheat sheet of Einsteinian physics. You know how, like, if you have like a bunch of complicated equations and you figure out portions of it in advance so that you can pretty much just, write it down as a constant or something like that, and you end up with a very smaller set of equations, right? Newtonian is like that smaller set of equations of Einsteinian physics.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of explaining it.
Perfect. Okay.
It's the difference between the exact way of doing it and the practical way of doing it. Einstein works very, very well.
Yeah.
We can use Newtonian physics all day long, and it'll tell us how to get artillery shells on target. It'll tell us how to send rockets into orbit. It'll tell us how steep to bank roads that we're driving on so that people don't get tossed off the side of the road when they go on a curve.
Missiles, airplanes, yeah.
Everything works fine with Newton, and Newton worked very fine until Einstein came along. Einstein just kind of changed the way we looked at it a little bit and refined it just a little bit more, but Newtonian physics worked great.
Okay. So there is absolutely no need to stop trying to use this is the way I kind of see it then. Me, I should probably use Newtonian theory of gravity rather than trying to explain Einstein's, because I am a caveman. Whereas then someone with a good basic knowledge of it can then further his knowledge of it through Einstein.
Well, here's another way of doing it. I can sit down and I can tell you that your kneecap breaks at 60 pounds per square inch of force delivered from a certain angle at over a certain period of time. All right. Now, my friend over there that just told me that there's the cheat sheet will simply tell you, don't hit your kneecap with a hammer, dude. All right. And then I'll say, well, yeah, actually, that's what I'm saying. If you hit the kneecap with something like a hammer, it'll break because of these 12 different things. And the other one says, well, don't hit your kneecap with a hammer because we know that'll break it. All right.
Yeah. I get it now. I'm getting it. And just so you guys remember, I'm pretty sure I said it already, Bob. But guys, remember, I'm trying to figure this shit out too. So if don't get frustrated if I ask questions that probably seem simple, or again.
Well, you haven't asked a simple question yet.
I thought I did. I really did. Yeah, because like I said, I have a good basic idea of how gravity works, and just from what you guys have shared so far, it definitely breaks down the things I didn't understand. For instance, again, I really thought it was a question between the two, and I definitely appreciate you guys explaining that it's not between the two. It's only the way it is explained in the methods which the two got to their conclusion.
Yeah, the easiest way to look at it. Yeah, the easiest way to look at it is Newtonian tells you what happens. Einstein tells you why it's happening.
Okay. There you go.
It's not an intrinsic force. Now, here's a classic example. I think Einstein actually used this. We have a solar system. Let's just assume that, okay? And we understand that each of the planets is in orbit around the solar system. Now, it takes light from the sun 8 minutes to get from the sun to Earth. We're going to accept that as a premise, okay? Now, under Newton, if we're merrily rotating or orbiting around the sun, and the sun suddenly disappears, it's no longer there. From the instant it happens, we will continue to go as a planet in a straight path from that very spot in our orbit. We're just going to keep going, right? Because nothing's pulling us in anymore, according to Newton. Under Einstein, the gravity from the sun travels at the speed of light. So if the sun suddenly disappeared, we would continue to orbit where it was as long as that it took that 8 minutes to get to us.
Okay, yeah.
So 8 minutes after the sun disappeared, we would still have light and we would still orbit the same spot. Then we would go dark and veer off into space.
And by the time
because
we
it's
realize,
not instantaneous.
But by the time we realize that's happening, probably froze to death, right?
Well, let's say that I wouldn't buy any green bananas.
Well, we retain our heat for a little while. Part carbon dioxide is like a blanket.
Yeah, we would survive for a while, and there's actually some theoretical thought that we could go underground. Some of us could.
God damn it.
There you go. We can hear you, Henry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
There you go.
Finally.
Yeah, it's kind of like a nuclear winter almost, right? I'm not saying it's the same thing at all. I'm just saying the fact that we don't need the sun.
Well, yeah, we really need the sun.
No,
we really do.
No, we need it, but like you were saying, we would survive for a little bit, but we'd have like
theoretically, I think that we could underground, but
because it would
using nuclear power or something or other to kind of keep heat going and do something with the air, but.
Oh, but yeah, the atmosphere would freeze.
Yeah, it would not turn out well. No.
You'd make it for a few years, and that'd be about it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably get by. Not long enough to develop a space program and go any place that we could go.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Hey, did you want to add, Henry? Because I know you've been trying to talk for a while. If you want the floor, more than welcome to. I know you've been trying to get on for a minute now.
Oh yeah, I just been sitting here trying to figure out how to unmute this damn thing. How you doing, Bob?
Not bad, man. Who's this?
Hey, Bob Harry.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
Yeah, we've been doing experiments, haven't we?
Well, I didn't see who you had. I didn't see your icon. I'm driving right now. I'm going from
Yeah,
work,
it's
heading
okay.
back home. And then tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm flying out for Florida. I'm on vacation. I'm thinking about hooking up with Red. Harry and I actually are the guys. Yeah, Red's Rhetoric. Harry and I are actually the guys that measured the radius of the Earth. Now, I told you guys I used a carpenter square and got within 110 miles. Oh, show off Harry here used a big ass dowel and got within about a quarter of a mile of the standard radius of the Earth.
I've heard that when you meet Red, you have to like shield your eyes.
I've heard that same thing.
No, I'm going to make him buy me a beer. No, I'm kind of hoping that we can get to a launch out there.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If I met Red Rhetoric, it'd be a little different. But I got a little, it's a little personal between me and him. So I don't think I'll be meeting Red Rhetoric anytime soon.
Well, I just like every now and then I like meeting somebody out here from online. I'd like to meet Wolfie someday. If he ever gets into Detroit or Chicago, I'm going to freaking drive over and meet him.
Well, it's definitely needing you guys to meet up because you guys are the ones that are definitely the forefront of these. Hey guys, everyone can do these experiments and prove that science isn't full of shit. And
well, I actually did a video on Harry's experiment, showing how it was done, and anybody can do it. It's a great thing if you're a homeschooler or something, or a high school kid. Anybody can do this, and we'll do it all again in the fall.
Yeah,
I'm going to hook up with some people I know up in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we should get a really good spread. I wish I'd thought about that earlier, but the weather was bad up there. I tried.
It really boggles my mind because, again, as a flat earther, it wasn't until the last year that I really got interested in wanting to do experiments and figuring out how to do them. But obviously, I had to know what I was doing first. And I'm actually, and I know 2 years later, I'm so gung ho about starting to do these experiments, and the thing is I'm surprised that there aren't dozens and dozens of flat earthers jumping at the chance to do these experiments and quote unquote prove the globe wrong.
Well, Sean, listen,
that's
Sean,
not what they're designed to do, man.
This is that experiment or not it's really not an experiment, it's just an observation, but replicating what Eratosthenes did is so simple. I mean, all you need is a stick. That's it. You don't need anything more than that.
Well, you need a level.
It's handy if that thing is standing plumb, but you can almost eyeball it and still get the same result. I doubt Eratosthenes actually had a spirit level.
Well,
they probably just stood back. They probably just stood back and said, "Yep, that's about it."
Well, I know you can eyeball it because I've said before, I do a lot of backpacking, and I did a lot of training and researching and learning to survive out and without technology stuff. And one of the things right away that you're taught is how to tell time and how to tell how much time you have left in a day. And those, that right there is that observation.
Yeah, you put that stick in the ground it's going to tell you which way north and south is real quick.
Yep. And learn how to do your fingers with the horizon and the sun. You figure out how many hours you have. And it even works in the mountains. Obviously, you don't have the same amount of time, but
it works anywhere.
But no, what they'll tell you is take away 1.5 fingers from your horizon because you don't have a true horizon there. But again, it's different in the mountains depending on where you're traveling at and how direction you're facing when you're doing it, or the time you're doing it at the direction I meant. But yeah, it's the same thing.
I'll tell you, it's such an easy thing to do, and it is astounding how accurate it is.
The thing that absolutely blew my mind on it, looking at I don't know if you looked at the numbers that I sent you here.
Yeah, I did.
Closely, but as far as the error in our measurements.
Oh, yeah, it's tiny.
It didn't matter if it was my 7-inch carpenter square or your 73-inch wood dowel.
Yep.
The error in measurement was 1/4 of an inch.
And that says
for
a
the
lot,
shadow.
because again, if science was this lie, Freemason equationed math, either their conclusions would have been so far off because it wasn't exact to that point, and it wasn't to the point where they had to do it a certain way, period, to get that number. That's what shows it's not a false number. It's not a false observation. It's an observation that happens every time you do it.
Look, Harry did a serious observation. He had a 73-inch dowel, and he also tracked the arc of the sun to make sure that he got exactly the right shadow.
Is this on your guys' pages? Both your guys' pages, or I'm gonna?
I've got a video. I got a video that's coming out Thursday, but Harry actually did the arc and measured it precisely with a small nail on top of that dowel so that he had a very point source. I did it with a 7-inch carpenter's square between patients.
Damn.
I got my location on the Earth with a quick 30-second observation at the right time within 80 miles.
Yeah.
Harry was able to hit the radius of the Earth within a freaking quarter of a mile with a stick on his back porch.
Yeah, and again, unless you've done the same thing and can say his experiment is wrong, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to get a whole chat of lies and you did it wrong and you don't know what you're doing. But none of the ones that say that will have done that observation. That's what.
Harry did two of them. He did a 73-inch stick and he did a 24-inch stick. I did a 7-inch.
Yeah, so we got all kinds of things. We got it bracketed in terms of accuracy and
you're breaking up a little bit, Bob. Fresh. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe where you're at. You're driving.
Yeah, I'm in the UP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that saddle loon isn't real close to me right now. but you know, we did a variety of these things, and we were 10 degrees apart on the Earth. All right, so Eratosthenes works fine, and then we tried to triangulate the sun from that. Harry, all yours.
Well, you got a real problem when it comes to the triangulation, and I've got a video that I'm going to put up on my channel that's going to show a real problem, and the real problem is Bob seemed to think the damn sun was at a different altitude than I thought it was by about 400 miles. It's more like 15% difference, and that's over only a 10 degree difference in latitude. It just does not work.
That would depict that whatever you guys are measuring, regardless of what it is, whatever it is, it's far away because the
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we sat down and said, look, if the sun is local, and the Earth is flat, we should be able to triangulate it.
Yeah,
and if we can triangulate it from a flat Earth, his reading, even though his angle is going to be different, his distance to the equator or under the sun is going to be different too. His sun will be at the same elevation that mine will.
Yes.
I'll just be at a slightly shallower angle to it and further away.
Right.
But it'll come out to the same number. It doesn't.
It does not.
That's
Bob's sun comes out 400 miles lower than mine does. So now we've either got two suns at two different altitudes or something's wrong here.
Yeah, because
it's my personal sun, man.
Your personal sun, Bob, is in the wrong damn spot. I can tell you that.
Well, it's in the right spot on my personal dome.
Apparently, it must be. Yeah, it must be.
There you go. Hey,
it's amazing. But listen, when you take the thing back to a circle, back to a sphere, and take my 73-inch megapole that I used, I measured a 54-degree angle, sun angle. My latitude is 36 degrees. You add those two numbers together, you get 90 degrees. That's amazing. How about that? If the sun really is 93 million miles away, that angle should have been 89.9984 something. Okay, I'm good, but I'm not that good. It really tells you that the sun is actually way up there.
Yeah.
And Bob's numbers came out the same.
Yeah, my number came out 45 degrees. You know what angle the sun was from my place? 45 degrees. You know what my latitude was?
44.
45 degrees.
Yeah, about 45, right?
And that's
there you go.
And that's the thing. So everyone knows, you can do these tests. I mean, it doesn't have to be at the equinox. It's just the best time to do, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. But
what you need, all you need,
a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
if you
have to vary in I get it.
It's really a simple thing. All you've got to have is one spot that you are sure that the sun is directly overhead, any place, and that's anywhere between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn on any given day.
Okay.
As long as you can guarantee that you're making a measurement to that position on that day when the sun is directly overhead. That's the only thing you need.
And that is relative to your solar noon, right? That's what you're.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to clarify to make sure.
Yeah, your solar noon.
What if you don't know what time solar noon is?
Go look at that shit.
You know how you do that?
No. Sean, what if you don't know what time solar noon is? How would you find it?
I go online and Google it.
No. I gave you a hint when I said Harry measured the arc. So if you know what direction due south is from your location, you can find solar noon.
It's really simple.
Find the midpoint, right?
So no, solar noon is actually when the shadow is the shortest.
And it's when the shadow goes directly north and south.
That's right. You will find out that the shortest shadow is going to tell you where north and south is. If you're drawing a line, that tells you already. Yeah. But as soon as that shadow becomes as short as it can get and starts to get a little bit longer, you just found solar noon. That's noon.
Okay. Perfect.
So that's simple.
Now, Harry, there was one question I had for you.
Yeah.
Because when I did it originally, my solar noon was listed as 1:42 and 6 seconds p.m. on the 20th.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you look at my west longitude, it's 83 point something or other. So when I first did this, I sat down and I said, okay, well, it occurred at 1:42. That is this amount of time after noon at Greenwich, England.
Yeah.
I divided that by 15 degrees, and I came up, and basically what I did was I calculated my longitude if solar noon was at 1:42 and 6 second p.m. And the problem with it is I was on one side of the state of Michigan near the shore of Lake Huron, and it had me on the southern shore of Grand Traverse Bay 100 miles away. Why did that not occur? Why did my solar noon not occur matching my longitude? That's something I haven't figured out yet. Because my solar noon should have matched my longitude exactly.
Yeah, it should have.
Maybe you
and it didn't. No, and I was using an Apple Watch, so I was using standard internet time, so it wasn't an issue of me. And I was using the time listed at solar noon, which is 142.1 minutes. So that should have matched my longitude, but it didn't. That came out to 100 miles west of me. So I'm trying to figure that one out.
It's probably perspective.
Take a drink.
Not quite zero. Almost solar noon, but not quite.
I have no idea.
It's almost as if I snapped the wand.
It's atmospheric. It's atmospheric compression.
Atmospheric lensing and humidity.
Compression. It's a new one that they've come.
And the diffraction horizon.
Or it could be diffraction.
It's the diffraction zone.
Yep, could be. I have no idea.
Minnesota was disappearing from the bottom up.
That must be. But that's something, seriously, Harry, that's something I was trying to figure out the other day. I don't know if it has to do with daylight savings time because that shouldn't have been something that I had to measure. That should have been the time that it said it should have been.
Yeah, that's right. That's not enough difference for the daylight savings time to affect it.
Well, it's almost a degree. I was a degree off. Yeah, I was more than a degree off. Actually, I was almost 2 degrees off. Based on the time that my solar noon was versus the time in England. There should have been 4 hours difference.
We need to figure that out.
Yeah, I know. I'm perplexed. I have cognitive dissonance. I'm confused.
Don't know.
Guys, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Or unless you guys want to keep going.
At the end of the day, just keep in mind we did this with a carpenter square and a stick. So you can only ask so much of yourself here.
And I'm going to put it out there. Any flat earther willing to do the observation with me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our data and I'm going to give it to Bob and Harry, and they're going to figure it out for us. So you guys don't even have to do the legwork, or you don't even have to do the hard part. Just the legwork, and that's the easy part.
No, as Harry says, it's not hard, and we'll do it, man.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the thing. I don't know about anyone else, but I would like to do it, and then maybe you guys show me, because I really want to know how to do it. So I would like you guys to show me how to step by step do it, so I don't miss anything. But I'm gonna probably I'll message one of you guys tonight, definitely.
All right, I'll tell you how to do it. Okay. I want you to get a flat table. Now, it can be a picnic table you put a piece of plywood on or something, but level it, okay? And in the center, I want you to take a stick and put it in a block of wood like Harry's 24-inch stick. And I want you to put a spike on top of it, like put a nail in it, like a finishing nail or something or other. Okay. And then one day around noon, put a piece of paper down, put some butcher paper down, put this block on top of it, and then I want you to actually mark every 30 seconds where that nail head is.
Okay.
And make sure that you have the mark where your stick is centered.
Yeah.
And if you do that and make those measurements, Harry and I can do it from there. And we'll show you step by step how to do it. You agree, Harry?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not difficult to do. It'll take you 20 minutes, literally. And you will have far more data points than Harry and I had.
Awesome.
But I need the date. And I need the measurements from the center of that dowel to each of those, the tip of that little finishing nail shadow. Okay, for about 10 minutes right around solar noon. 5 before and 5 after. I mean, it's literally a lunch hour trick. All you have to do is make sure that, the stick is plumb and the surface is flat.
Yes. Yeah. So
level, not flat, level. God damn it.
It's perfect because I actually marked and with little stars, level. So I was actually going to correct you too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. You guys, I appreciate it. You have no idea. Just the information you guys have given me today
science is freaking awesome. It really is.
It is, and the thing is that I'm learning, and this is the crazy part. The more I learn about these things, the more I realize how they're set up to be debunked by anybody. Just do it, but you have to show that you can debunk it. You just have to do it. Flat Earth. If you're going,
anybody on Flat Earth can debunk Harry and I. All you have to do is understand how the thing is done and show me that you're getting a different result.
Yeah,
that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of science. It's not.
That's all it takes.
Freaking brain surgery.
Again, so
Harry's not a scientist, either am I.
And I've
I bet that neither one of us thought about this stuff since high school.
I haven't thought about it since I was getting way too stoned for that.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
But neither one of us work in this field.
Hell, I spent a lifetime as an engineer. I didn't think about this stuff. I just did engineering stuff.
If guys in the chat everywhere, if I'm gonna do these observations and experiments that I'm gonna start doing, if I can do them, there is no reason in hell you guys can't. Again, I am the caveman.
John, the beautiful thing about science is this: it's free. It's absolutely free. It's open to everybody. We can all do these things. I mean, there's a few things. I can't make a large hadron collider, and Bob probably couldn't. I don't know. Maybe Bob could, but I can't do it.
No.
But so many of these things, like this simple Eratosthenes experiment, we can all do that. Anyone can do that. It is really simple.
The advantage that Harry and I have is that we are used to doing relatively precision measurements. And but you see, I mean, Harry's an engineer. I'm not. I'm related to some, but I understand the need to do relatively good. You have to design an experiment so that you understand what you're doing, and then you have to actually measure the results and be able to look at those results and say, hey, that either disagrees with what I said and not feel bad about that. Some of our best experiments, like Michelson-Morley, were failures. They did not succeed in the thing that they were designed to do, but the fact that they didn't was more important.
Absolutely. Yeah. A failure is a success in another sense.
Harry designs a building, and that building collapses. The first thing that's going to happen is they're not going to blame Harry. They're going to sit down and try and figure out why that building collapsed, and make sure that the next Harry that comes out doesn't make the same mistakes he did. Same thing with mine.
Well, Harry,
same thing with my job.
You did make sure that you're an engineer. You're not an inspector, right? You don't sign that piece of paper, right?
No, I don't do that. I'm an engineer, but
I work in construction, so we get signed off by inspectors too, and
I know how that works.
Yeah, they're the ones who they take the real grunt when something happens because they signed off.
Well, part of it, but at the end of the day, the engineer that signed those drawings, that's the guy that's really on the hook.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the one that gets blamed when somebody dies, and they try and figure out. There's always some grandson out in California that hasn't seen grandma in 20 years, is feeling guilty that he wasn't there when she died, and so he's going to get the bastard that killed her.
Sure.
And that's the way it always works out with us.
Yeah. Your margin for error is really limited.
Yeah.
Wait. You don't really get a margin of error like that.
No, we really don't. But we get a little bit of leeway for non-serious stuff, but you really screwed the pooch.
Yeah.
You're going to answer for it.
A wrong toe. Okay. But yeah. A life, still different. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. I do appreciate it again, and I'm going to keep in touch with you. Definitely. Brenda, thank you for being on. Kurt, thank you for being on. So you can find, I remember you're here. I forgot you. That's because my memory is garbage. But yeah, guys, in the chat or in the hangout, thank you guys for being here. Guys, that's gonna be it for today. It seemed, again, I'm not gonna be going over things all super detailed because I still need to understand it. Now I'm still learning it. I'm going to put that out there. Any flat earther that is really wanting to figure out what we observe and how to figure out where we live, do these experiments with me. Do these observations with me. We'll do the same ones. We'll bring them together. We don't even have to do it live. We could do it in the back chats just to understand where we're at here. But again, I'm going to do it regardless. But if you're really a flat earther and you're really here for truth, shouldn't you be more than willing to do observations and tests with me? Shouldn't you be more than willing to prove your belief is the one true belief, right? Guys, this platform is here for everyone. you're a flat earther and you think your presentation shows something is very flawed with the globe, let me know. I'll give you the floor the whole time just to speak your mind. Same for the globe. Why? Because I want to learn everything. Again, I don't mind a flat earther doing this because I want to learn everything I didn't get to learn as a flat earther, figure out where I went wrong in that. So guys, again, like I said, and I'm going to say it till I'm blue in my face, if you really want truth, and you cannot tell me I'm being cited, you can't say that I'm acting funny or I'm asking unreasonable questions. If you're willing to, if you're here for truth, real truth, shouldn't you be willing to do any experiment you can? Shouldn't you want to be involved in any experiment you can?
But my legs heavy, I don't get it. How come I haven't hit it already? Still working, I'm still learning, I'm still searching, finally earning something, finally turning something called a profit. If I hear you talking shit, don't get caught in it. I'll be popping off and hit your ass, dropping all your shit. Yeah, I promise this, I got promises. You ain't stopping this, cross my shit, you'll be knocked unconscious, bitch. That's the consequence, I got this, I will not quit. Man, I'm on it, honest, I'm gonna launch quick, then I'm gone. It's just a matter of time before I'm over the climb and moving under my prime. Just quit my 9 to 5, I'm rocking, and they watching, cause it's shocking. Dropping all these top 10 songs, so stopping. It's time to live my life, it's time to live, not die. Wish I could slow down time and just enjoy the climb.